I keep the maintenance log out of habit. The binder is wrinkled from salt and greasy hands. The last real entry is a month old, the day our pilot waved from the cockpit and the helicopter lifted off with the last crew who wanted to gamble on the mainland. My entry after that is a single line. No flights scheduled. We had diesel for the generators, dry goods in the storeroom, and a fresh water maker that still ran. Everyone said distance meant time. 50 miles of water felt like a wall. We stood on the helideck when the first smoke columns rose inland and told each other we had done the smart thing. Then the radios turned into rumor and silence and government notices on repeat. We kept working because work kept the noise out of our heads. I did rounds, checked pump seals, watched the alignment on the shaft bearings, and argued about fuel polishing schedules. I did not look at the shore anymore. I kept my eyes on bolts and belts and gauges. That always told the truth. The trawler shows up on a blue morning with a haze on the water. I am up on the crane walkway checking a sticky limit switch when Dana calls me on the handheld. Her voice sounds dry. Portside, white hull, no wake. I cross to the rail and follow her hand. The boat drifts in our direction with its bow a few degrees high, the way a vessel looks when water has pooled somewhere in the stern. The wheelhouse windows are black. No names on the side. Just chipped paint and a net boom folded at an angle. The mast light is out. A torn tarp flaps against the aft rail and shows a gap where the deck hatch sits open. No one moves on deck. It takes an hour for the current to bring it into the lee of our jacket. We stand in a line without talking. 6 of us spread along 2 decks, watching a dead boat move on living water. Miguel breaks the spell with a decision. He is the tool pusher by title and the acting boss since our operator stopped sending directives. We cannot let it bang into the structure, he says. We will get a line on it and tie it off to the south mooring point until we figure it out. Harper, who trained as a medic before she decided she had enough of emergency rooms, nods but keeps her arms folded. Nobody goes aboard without my say-so, she says. Singh, the electrical lead, checks the wind with a wet finger and snorts. The current is walking it right to us. We need fenders. I head for the crane because that is where my hands know what to do. We swing out the orange Yokohamas and set 2 down against the lower rail, then hang old truck tires from a chain. Jules checks the winch lines and gives me a quick thumbs up. We lower the personnel basket, not for people but for a heavy hawser coil, and pay out loose slack while the trawler bumps softly into the fenders. The first impact is a shudder through metal, then a squeal as rubber drags across paint. Small flakes fall into the water and swirl in a pattern around the legs of the platform. The trawler's boom swings a few inches and creaks. The smell that comes off the boat is old fish, bilge water, and diesel that has soaked into boards. Donna calls the hull numbers to the radio, in case a Coast Guard cutter still listens out there. Static answers with a carrier that rises and falls, and through it a pattern of numbers I do not recognize at first. A grid of coordinates, not our position. It repeats. The deck hatch stands open by a few inches, and the empty hold is a dark square in white paint. A gull lands on the rail and makes 3 short calls, then hops away again. We all hear the radio whisper and glance at each other. Miguel leans over the rail and points to the cleat. "Hook it," he says to me. I nod and lower the hook with a foot tap on the lever. The line snakes and bites the cleat. Jules dogs the capstan, and the trawler eases into the fenders and holds. The radio keeps whispering the same numbers. Dana writes them on the back of a clipboard and reads them twice, slow and careful. The coordinate points land on a swath of open water south by west. No buoys there, no platforms. Harper makes a face. "Someone recorded a loop," she says. "Maybe an emergency beacon." Miguel scratches his beard once and makes the call we all knew he would make. "We will board in daylight, 2 persons only, masks and gloves. First job is to shut down that transmitter and get the boat quiet. Then we will see if the engines can be isolated." He looks at me. "You and me." I swallow and nod. Procedures are a comfort. I pull on Tyvek, tape my sleeves, set a P100 cartridge mask, and check my radio. Harper checks us like a safety officer. "If you see anything biological, you back out," she says. "No hero moves." Miguel smiles without humor. "I like my skin too much," he says. We lower the personnel basket again and ride it down to the trawler deck. The basket swings with the swell and bumps the rail. I time the step and move across to the steel. Miguel lands behind me. The deck lists a few degrees and shifts underfoot as water sloshes below the planks. A line has parted, and the ends have fused with dried salt. The wheelhouse door is cracked. The glass bears a smudge the height of a shoulder. I keep my hands where I can see them and resist the urge to draw the folding knife in my pocket. We walk to the wheelhouse and call out. No answer. The cabin is a small space with a chart table, a radio on the bulkhead, and a coffee mug fused to a ring of dried sugar. The radio display glows on a small inverter. A cable runs down under the console. A loop plays on a cheap handheld shoved under the table, wired into the boat set. Someone taped the press to talk down with black tape. I peel the tape and the loop stops. The silence feels heavier than the static. Miguel kills the inverter and pulls the handheld free. He does not like unexplained power draws. He hands the unit to me for my backpack. "We will sort the recording later," he says. He checks the engine binnacle with a quick glance. It is dead. There is a smear on the throttle handle, brown and sticky, and my brain refuses to finish that thought. I tilt my head toward the open hold. The deck boards there are scuffed and damp. The hatch lifts easily. The hold yawns dark and damp and not empty. Ropes are coiled on nails. A crate is busted open, and the shape in the corner is a tarp over a frame. Miguel shines his headlamp, and the light picks up netting, hooks, and a row of plastic bottles wired to a wooden frame. The bottles are half full of cloudy water, and each cap has a hole punched in it with a short tube pushed through. A drip rig. Someone tried to keep something wet. I swing my light to the bilge access. The grate is up on one corner. Water murmurs below. Something brushes the underside of the deck near my feet. A light touch runs along a beam. I freeze and lift my boot. No hand reaches up. Only a ripple and a set of bubbles climb through the bilge water and break against the grate. The air smells of stale nets and wet wood. Miguel pulls me by the sleeve out of the circle of the hold and sets the hatch back down without slamming it. He holds up 2 fingers and taps his radio. We back out of the cabin and into the open air, and the daylight feels too thin. I try to think through facts. A recorded loop with coordinates. A drip frame for bottles. A bilge that moves. A hatch that was left open on purpose to let air in or out. I do not want to guess what someone kept in that water. Harper waves from the platform rail and points to her eyes, then sweeps her fingers across the trawler deck. I give her a flat palm and then 2 circles to mean status unknown. She cups her hands to her mouth and says a word that carries in the wind. Quarantine. She wants us to treat the boat as dirty. I nod and tap my mask. Miguel makes one more sweep. He peeks into the galley. A pot sits on a cold burner with a ring of mold on the surface. A drawer is open. There are 2 spoons and 1 knife. He closes the drawer, and we back to the rail, clip onto the basket sling, and ride up. When my boots land on the safety grating, I feel the small relief that comes from standing on a surface I know. Harper walks us through a washdown. Bleach solution on boots, gloves into a bag, masks stay on. Singh lowers a cargo net with 2 new fenders and a portable pump. We keep it off the structure and we keep water moving, he says. I do not want that bilge sloshing into our intake. We put the trawler on a longer line with a snubber and position it off the south corner where the swell does less mischief. The portable pump goes into the hold with a discharge line over the side. The pump coughs, catches, and starts moving water. The stream runs cloudy at first, then clears. The level in the bilge drops slow because somewhere more water is coming in. A hull fitting leaks under the waterline. The pump buys time. Harper posts 2-hour watches with eyes on the boat. No one is to step aboard again without her nod. Miguel assigns me to check the water maker pre-filters because we will be using more water now. I go because work steadies the mind. On the way down, the overhead steel hums with the generator load, a sound I have heard for years and never noticed. Now I hear every change in pitch. The first night with the trawler tied off, sleep thins. The wind rattles the helideck netting and props whisper in the swell. I take a coffee to the south rail after midnight and watch the boat roll. The pump runs with a steady exhaust note. The discharge hose spits a constant stream. Twice the stream hiccups, draws air, and then catches again. On the third hiccup, the pump coughs and shakes on its mounts, then smooths out. The sound draws Harper beside me without words. She watches the deck and the open hatch and the way fog gathers around rigging. "You heard it too," she says. I nod. The pump tone shifted, as if something passed across the intake. She frowns and tests the rail with her palm. "The boat rides a little higher," she says. "Level dropped." I feel a tickle in the back of the mind that pushes toward a direction I do not want to follow. I force myself to describe only what I know. The water level in the hold is lower. The pump is not clogged. The discharge is steady. The trawler is not lighter because of cargo being removed. We did not move anything. The only thing that changed is underneath. At dawn, Dana finds something on the tower camera feed. Her monitor records on a loop. She scrubs back at triple speed and calls us to the mess where the signal is strongest. The camera shows the trawler deck under moonlight, grainy and silent. The hold hatch is dark. At 3 a.m, a shape moves in the patch of light. It is not a person. It is not a fish flopping. It is a set of fingers that rise slow above the bilge grate, then slide across the deck boards and test edges the way an octopus feels a jar. The skin is gray-white from long exposure to water. It tracks along a seam, finds the hatch lip, and retreats when the pump coughs. The angle is wrong for a person horizontal in the bilge. The camera shows only a piece in soft focus. It is enough to erase the last doubts. Something in that hold keeps itself wet and waits for moments when noise covers its movement. Miguel closes his eyes for one long second and then opens them with a plan. "We cut the line. We let the boat drift," Singh says in a rush, but Miguel shakes his head. "It is on our side of the legs. If it drifts in, it will crush pipes or the firewater intake. It stays tied off for now. We make it leave under our control." He turns to me. "Can we tow it with the work skiff?" I bite down on my first answer and think it through. The skiff is a stout aluminum boat we kept on the East Davits for pipeline inspection runs. It has a small diesel and a heavy transom. In calm water, it can push a trawler slowly. In swell, It can snap a line and flip us. Today's sea is a gentle roll. We can nudge it, I say, if we go slow and keep it clear of the jacket. Harper folds her arms. And if your nudge makes the thing try to change decks? I do not have a clean answer. Miguel moves past that gap. We prepare the skiff, and we prepare a second plan. If it boards, we stop it here. Stopping it here means revisiting systems we never thought we would use against a living thing. The engine room has a total flood carbon dioxide suppression that can kill a fire by displacing oxygen. The galley has wet chemical extinguishers that can drown a grease flare. The deck deluge can cover steel in a curtain of water and foam. The HVAC system can isolate zones and pressurize or depressurize compartments. We have fire doors with dogs that seat into steel, and we have ways to make walking hard for anything that does not understand ladders. Miguel walks the team through assignments. Singh will stage at the main switchboard and be ready to shed non-essential loads and keep the firewater pump live. Jules will run the south crane as a shepherd to keep lines clear. Harper will suit up with a face shield and a fisherman's gaff from the storeroom, because repeated experience has taught all of us that there is no substitute for a tool with reach and a hook. Donna will keep eyes on cameras and call movement. I will take the skiff with Miguel. If the plan goes wrong, we have one last ugly measure: the flare boom. It vents gas safely away from the platform. It also carries a pilot flame. If we can push the trawler's stern line near the boom and light off the deluge, we can send heat across its deck without touching ourselves. None of us want that as Plan A. I stack lines in the skiff, check fuel, and start the diesel. The small engine settles into a steady thrum. Miguel steps in with 2 extra fenders and a long push-pole. We keep our masks on. The water around the legs is streaked with algae and tiny bits of rope fiber from the fender rub. The smell of the sea is clean enough to cut through the sour trawler odor. I ease the skiff off the davits while Jules keeps light pressure on the line holding the trawler in place. "Ready on the cut," he calls. Miguel nods to me, and we push the bow of the skiff into the trawler's quarter. I give light throttle. The hull groans, and the trawler drifts 2 feet off the fenders. "Cut," Miguel says into the radio, and the line snakes free from the cleat. For a moment, the trawler is ours alone. We push it in a slow arc away from the platform. The swell cooperates in a lazy rhythm that nudges us along. Dana counts distance on the camera. 30 feet, 35. Singh calls out pump status as if against bad luck. Firewater ready. Deluge valves set on south deck. I keep my eyes on the open hold and the hatch lip. The water in the hold rides a few inches below the deck. It slops once, and dark hands explore the metal edge. Miguel raises the push pole. "Do not give it purchase," he says. I dip the throttle. The trawler's bow swings, and we open sea between it and home. Relief wants to climb into my throat. I keep it down with work. 50 feet, Dana says. You have clearance. Miguel breathes once, steady. Keep pushing until the current holds it. The radio goes harsh in my ear with static that turns into the same coordinates from before. The handheld we recovered is dead, and in a sealed bin. This loop comes from somewhere else. Donna scans the board. That is not our set, she says. Not the trawler either. It is bouncing off us. The origin is low, waterline level. I look at the trawler again with fresh eyes. In the corner of the hold, behind the bottle rig, a small rubberized case sits half submerged. The lid is cracked and shows a red light underwater. A tubed transducer hangs over the side on a scrap of wire. The case was built to live wet. Someone took time to make sure a signal would keep calling, even if no one breathed on that boat again. The coordinates are a set far south, a place where a current line runs and debris collects. I hear my own voice without planning it. "Bait," Miguel nods, and we bit. The thing in the hold chooses that moment to make a bid for our deck. A hand latches onto the hatch lip and pulls. Another hand appears a foot away, searching for purchase. The palms are pale and torn, the nails cracked. The way it moves is problem-solving without panic. The pump intake burps and the hands drop, then return as the flow smooths. Miguel jabs the push-pole hard into the hatch opening. The end clangs against metal and then strikes something softer that gives but does not withdraw. He jabs again, and the hands vanish. A sound comes from the hold that is not a voice, more a wet dragging and the scrape of bone on wood. I do not think. I put the skiff's bow into the trawler again and push hard until the hull shivers. The hatch slams down on its own weight and stays down. "Enough," Miguel says. "We have it clear. Let the current work." We back the skiff off. The trawler holds a line south on the tide. By the time we loop around to our davits and hook in, the trawler is 70 feet off the corner and moving. Singh lets out a long breath that fogs his face shield. Harper watches the deck with a stillness that reads as ready. Jules secures the davit. Donna tracks the trawler on camera until it turns into a small shape. We stand there long enough to feel foolish about how long we stand. Then work retakes us. Miguel assigns rotations. We watch it until it is gone, he says. We do not assume. By late afternoon, the trawler is a smudge in the haze. The radio gives one more sudden burst of coordinates and then goes dead. The handheld in the sealed bin, the one from the wheelhouse, lights briefly again without any power source I can find, then dies for good. I log it out of habit, because writing pins my mind to the specifics. At dusk, I walk the lower deck alone to listen for anything unusual. The sea slaps the legs with relaxed regularity. A flying fish jumps and leaves a ripple. The smell of diesel from our generator room is a steady blanket. I stop at the grate for the moon pool and look down. The water there heaves slowly against the inner walls. A chain knocked loose by earlier operations clinks around a stanchion. I turn to go and then stop, because the chain just moved against a current that is not strong enough to push it. I take a step back to the grate. Something pale slides against the inside of the moon pool wall and vanishes. I stand still for longer than is comfortable. The pale shape returns near a ladder rung 8 feet below and hangs there just at the edge of the light. A hand tests the rung. The fingers close and release. A second hand floats up and touches the line of the rung below. There is no face, only the pale reach and a slow, deliberate test of steel. I close the grate and throw the dogs down with both hands. The clang carries through the deck. Harper is there with her shield up before I can speak, and Miguel is not far behind. I point to the grate. No words form at first. He looks at my face and does not waste time. "Jules, deluge on the moon pool," he says into the radio. Singh acknowledges, and the pump spools up. A second later, seawater crashes down around the inner walls in a sheet and hammers the surface into white. The hands vanish. We run the deluge for 5 minutes, then 10. The water pounds the surface into a froth that hides everything. When we cut it, the bubbles clear. The pool shows only dark water and the reflection of our faces. Miguel does not trust smooth surfaces. He orders a spot watch on the grate. 2 persons per watch. Shift change every hour. It learned the structure, he says, and it learned our habits. Harper tightens the strap on her shield. It came for the fresh water, she says, or for our hut, or for sound. We go upstairs and walk through our air intakes and strainers. I pulled 2 jellyfish out of a screen and bag them on reflex, even though we do not log biology anymore. I wash my hands 3 times because the slime sticks. Night piles on top of us. The wind picks up, and the rig sings in the way steel sings when tension builds in long beams. The generator load shifts when Dana cooks rice for 10 instead of 12. Small things carry weight when the rest of the world is thin. I take the 2 o'clock watch at the moon pool with Jules. We lean on the rail and say nothing for a long stretch. Footsteps overhead mark other watches making rounds. The radio gives us a clear band of dead air. My eyes adjust to the low light. Motion at water level becomes easier to spot. 30 minutes in, a shape rises under the surface with a smoothness that says it is not drift. It touches the grate from below at a single point with a knuckle and holds there. It does not push. It just measures. Jules raises the gaff slowly. The tip shakes once, then steadies. The knuckle withdraws an inch. I step to the deluge lever. Ready, I say. Jules nods. The shape slides away and is gone. We do not pull the lever. We wait for the next test. Toward dawn, Singh calls me down to the generator room. The board shows a small but steady draw we cannot identify. It comes and goes. It spikes when the pump cycles on the fire line. It is tapping something, he says. Signal, vibration, I do not know. He points to the cable run that feeds the tank-level sensors near the splash zone. I do not want to step out near that area in the gray light before sunrise, but this is the work. We clip on tethers and go. The walkway outside smells of rust and salt. We crouch by the sensor cabinet and open it. The fuses are intact. The cable glands are tight. There is a smear of something on the lower lip of the cabinet. I touch it with a gloved finger and hold my hand to the light. It shines with a thin film. Not oil, not fish. It has a faint ammonia tang. Singh makes a face and wipes it off with a rag. It wants to know where our water is, he says. We close the cabinet and check the conduit for bites or cuts. None. Still, the unknown draw continues. We do something that always helps in trouble. We simplify the system. Singh and I run a bypass to remove the suspect circuit from the board. The load drops by a small margin. He kills one of the 2 non-essential AC units that cool the auxiliary room because we do not need comfort. The board hum drops and the envelope of sound becomes easier to read. Donna calls from the camera. Movement at the south intake. Harper and Miguel are already on the way when I reach the ladder. We crouch at the railing with the intake grate 6 feet below us. Hands explore the bars near the corner. Fingertips press the mesh and feel the welds. The hands pull away when a small fish swims past and sends a tiny pressure wave. It is learning our edges again and again without haste. Miguel opens the wash hose and sends a blast across the grate. The hands vanish and return 1 minute later. We keep the hose live while Singh adjusts the flow on the intake to keep pressure in our favor. By noon of the second day, one truth becomes clear. We cannot live with an intelligent intruder at the waterline. We have 2 options: drive it away or kill it. No one says the words kill out loud, but all eyes hold the question. Harper sets her jaw and lays out a plan that uses her training in unpleasant ways. If it is a person altered by exposure, he still drowns without air, she says. He is surviving by staying in the water until he can find a path. We will deny the paths and force him into the open. Miguel nods and turns the safety board on the wall toward the table where we eat. He draws a circle for the platform and marks our intakes: the moon pool, the drains, the ladder wells, the points where a jump could gain a deck. He turns to Jules. Boom wire! Jules smiles for the first time in 2 days. I thought you would never ask. Boom wire on a rig is a practical thing for birds and loose rigging. We have spools of stainless line used to string physical barriers across areas where gulls roost. We stretch it now in a low maze around the deck edges. 3 lines at different heights. Not to stop a human, but to trip one into a hard angle. We hang small lengths of chain with hooks that rattle and snag. We set nets across the base of ladders. We do not rely on any single measure. We also rig the deluge to full manual in zones, so that one pull floods a specific area without waiting for a pump to spin up. Sing primes the pump and leaves it humming, valves closed. The handle positions are chalk-marked and taped so that a hand in the dark can find them. Harper fetches the gaffs and a boat hook and tapes the poles in bright stripes so that our eyes can track each other. I prep a small drum of diesel and set it near the flare boom because I do not trust plans that require perfect timing. I want a way to make a loud message if the thing climbs a rail. We wait for our visitor to make the next test. It does not take long. At dusk, a hand appears at the moon pool grate again. It touches the dog lever and feels the shape. It is not guessing at random. It tests every mechanism a diver would test. It knows we respond to the deluge, so it does not push hard now. It waits for a shift change. Miguel and I stand at opposite corners to break that habit. When the hand lingers, I nod to Sing on the radio. He throws the zone valve, and the deluge drops a wall of water into the pool. The hand withdraws. Under that noise, another sound begins at the south ladder. Chain rattles, Jules calls it. South ladder 1! Harper is already moving. We converge and catch a glimpse of a head and shoulder hauling up past the bottom rung. The skin is pale and furrowed. The eyes do not blink against spray. The mouth is closed. It does not gasp. It moves with effort and intention. Harper hooks the shoulder with the gaff and shoves hard. The body drops and vanishes below the platform edge. Water boils under the ladder as the intruder reacts to the shove. It does not leave. It searches for another path. Donna calls a third location. North drain. We split. At the north drain, a pale forearm reaches into the scupper and tries to pull. Jules slams a grate over it. The arm whips back and does not reappear. I feel my jaw grinding. I force my hands to open and close. Miguel lifts his radio to speak and stops when the generator note shifts. Sing snaps his head toward the board. Load spike, engine 2 tripped. The fire pump coughs, catches, and holds. The deluge stutters for a beat and then steadies. The half-second of lower pressure is enough for a shape to surge at the moon pool gate again. Harper yells for water, and it comes, late but strong. We are living in the margins now, and the margins are thin. We need to end this before fatigue takes the controls. Miguel gives us a line that is as blunt as it needs to be. We force him to climb where we want him to climb, he says. We cannot choose his mind, but we can choose pressure. We keep the moon pool hammered. We slosh the intake with wash lines. We set one ladder as the path of least resistance, the east side under the flare boom. We remove the boom wire there and clear the nets. We leave one grate unlatched enough to look careless. We make a stage. I hate everything about this plan, and I help build it. The flare boom juts out from the east face with its little pilot flame that burns clean and steady. The wind is right to carry heat away from us. Sing stands by the deluge valves with one hand on each lever. Jules takes the crane and stations the hook over the east face with a sling ready. Harper lifts the gaff and tests the flex. I stand by the small diesel drum with a rag shoved under the lid. Miguel nods once and we start the clock. We open the moon pool deluge and keep it going. We hit the south intake with the wash. We make noise at the north drain. We leave the east ladder quiet and bare. We wait. It begins as a ripple and a faint scrape under the east face. Then a head rises in the gap, followed by shoulders that look wider than a normal person's shoulders, because muscles hold water and swell. The skin is torn in bands. The eyes look past us without expression, scanning surfaces. The mouth opens a fraction and closes, not in a breath, but as if testing the seal of lips. The hands grip the ladder. The forearms bristle with small cuts that have the clean look of net abrasion. The body moves up rung by rung with steady effort. Jules whispers a count under his breath. 1, 2, 3. Harper lifts the gaff but holds it. We do not want to knock him off early. We want him on the deck under the boom where our controls are good. I step back with the drum until my heel touches the chalk mark that Miguel laid down an hour ago. The intruder plants a hand on the deck edge. The fingers spread and press to find friction. The second hand follows. He hauls his torso up and hangs there for half a second. Harper strikes. The gaff point bites into the upper arm. He does not cry out. He swings his other hand toward her grip. That is what we need. Singh slams the deluge lever for the east deck. Water crashes across steel and pours over man and rail. The flare boom's pilot takes the mist and turns it into a bright sheet that skirts the edge. Heat licks past my face shield hard enough to make the edges of the plastic soften. The intruder loses purchase. He drops onto the lower rung and clings with both hands. Jules swings the crane hook and the sling arcs over the ladder. Miguel lunges with a boat hook and catches the sling, then dips it under the intruder's arms and hauls up. We lift not to save him, but to stretch him where water will do the most. He kicks once, an ugly motion with no rhythm, and then stiffens against the spray. The mouth stays closed. He needs air eventually, no matter what he has taught his body. Singh keeps the deluge on. I light the rag in the drum. The flame takes with a small cough. I roll the drum 2 turns until a lick of fire reaches the edge and adds heat to the air under the boom. The intruder's hands slip. One releases and flails for purchase. Harper hooks the wrist and shoves it down. The second hand loosens. The body drops through the sling and vanishes into white water. The waves below thrash and boil. We keep the water going. 30 seconds. A minute. 2. The shape does not reappear at the ladder. My mind offers images I do not accept. I hold onto the clock instead. At 3 minutes, we let the deluge slow to a curtain. The sea settles. No head breaks the surface. No hand tests a rung. The only motion is foam sliding along the leg. No one cheers. We keep positions through the next hour as if time itself might pull a trick. Donna sweeps the cameras again and again. She logs time marks in a neat hand. Singh watches the board and keeps the pump warm. Jules keeps the sling ready. Harper lowers her shield and presses her fingers hard into the bridge of her nose for 5 breaths, then puts the shield back up. Miguel checks each of us with a glance in lieu of words. He knows none of us want to be the first to say it is done. By afternoon, the sea has nothing to add to our questions. Miguel gives us slow, careful steps out of alert posture. We reset the boom wire where we cut it. We lower the deluge to ready. We pull the drum back and cap it. Harper replaces the gaff with a short-handled hook and sets it by the door. Singh restores the auxiliary circuits one at a time and watches for the mystery draw. It does not return. I walk to the moon pool with a socket set in my hand. I lift the dogs and open the grate a crack. The water is plain water. The chain clinks again under a small sway. I close the grate and dog it home and write down the time in the log. That night, We eat rice with canned chicken and sit at the long table in the mess without talking at first. The rig creaks under a mild swell. The helideck net breathes. A gull lands on the rail and stamps in place twice, then settles. The radio is quiet except for the standard emergency frequency message that loops until the next sunrise. Donna turns the volume down to a whisper. I write the day's events in the binder with careful block letters and no adjectives. I note the coordinates from the trawler, the placement of the drip frame, the behavior at the moon pool, the test at the intake, the response to water and heat, the absence of any vocalized sound. I do not write a conclusion. I sign my name and the time. Miguel closes the binder and sets it on the shelf. No salvage, he says. No boarding unknowns. Heads nod around the table. He taps the radio. We keep listening. We answer no calls that ask us to go where we cannot see. We stay higher than the water. I lie in my bunk and stare at the dark for a while. The rig is metal and bolts and pumps. It tells the truth if you pay attention. Distance did not save us. Procedures poured concrete under our feet and gave us something to stand on. The mainland burns without us. The trawler drifts in a line that exists on a chart, but not in our world anymore. Something out there learned to live in the gaps we left when we turned away. We will keep working, because that is what we know. In the morning, I will check the bearings on the pump and open the strainer housing to look for jellyfish. I will run the fire pump and set the deluge to ready. I will walk the moon pool grate and feel the dogs with my palm to make sure they seat. I will keep the binder close and write another line. If the world wants a record of how a handful of people stayed above water, it will be in that plain handwriting. If someone reaches up again from the dark, he will find steel, wire, and water waiting for him.